Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's lecture. Fear. Fear is real. Fear is more deadly than this virus will ever be. Fear is a major stressor in many of your lives. Fear will paralyze many to not think for themselves. Fear will make you feel helpless, and the people who push fear on you know this. You're more easily controlled in a fearful state. Fear will tax your body and your adrenal glands over time. Your adrenal glands are tested daily. Are yours healthy? But Dr. Jeff, it's just a mask. It's our civil duty to protect one another by wearing one. But Dr. Jeff, it's just a COVID-19 vaccine. It's our civil duty to protect one another by getting one. Where are you going to draw the line? That's my question for you tonight. Battling adrenal fatigue. Fear has two meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is truly yours. Back in 2017, I did the adrenal thyroid connection lecture. Tonight's lecture is all based in more depth with the adrenal stuff. In January, I'm going to tackle more of the thyroid, the functional medicine approach to your thyroid. That will be January's lecture. Dr. Tent is going to attack the immune system and viruses in December. He's getting pretty pumped up and excited about that. Travis, who is filming me tonight and has done with all of our lectures, filmmaker, photographer, videographer, does very quality work with us, and we appreciate his work. If you guys need a videographer or his assistance, his contact info is right there. October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This truly should be Breast Cancer Prevention Month. It's scary the amount of younger people I'm getting in this office on a regular basis with cancers. I just had a 34-year-old 3 weeks ago with a breast cancer that just tugging on my heart because of how severe this may be in her case. It's scary, the things that we're being exposed to that's pushing people into early amounts of cancers. If you go to cancer.org and you look at the statistic with cancer, 50% of our generation, and even possibly more, will be diagnosed with some form of cancer throughout their lifetime. Prevention is key. We are doing the thermography at the office. The next one that we're doing is October 6th. About the time this lecture comes out, this may be a little too late for you to hear that, but we are doing it every few months. So call and contact the office if you are interested in breast thermography. That is a preventative way of attacking some of this stuff and staying ahead of the game. We are all over social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. When we first launched our Instagram page, Dr. Tent's son was running the stuff, and he turned my personal page more into a professional page. We're doing a 180 now, and now I'm going to move my personal page back to the Diverse Health Services page. I'm running a lot of the stories, doing Instagram story themes. If you've followed me along on my regular page, you kind of know what it's about. Follow our blog. Try to give you guys some good tips and tricks through the blog. This is our team. We work hard for you guys. And we've got an addition to our team, which you guys may have already heard, Dr. Gill. Dr. Craig Gill's been in practice for about 25 years. He's got a practice in Berkeley and Brighton. He's closing those up and merging in with us in Novi. Practices very, very much to the T like us, and we'll have some additional things. So I'm excited to have him come along with us. If you've had a good experience with us, shoot us a review, let us know, spread the word. We like to hear your guys' testimonials. We love Skyping. I absolutely love how we could reach out all across the U.S. and all across the world Skyping with patients. I just had a patient last week that just about brought tears to my eye. That is a fertility case, and She didn't think she could get pregnant. Her doctors told her there's no way she could get pregnant. And what do you know? Good quality supplement protocol, and she is pregnant. And just very grateful for everything that we've done for her. And it just was an awesome case. Not the Skype case that I want to talk about right here, but this is a never give up. Just don't give up. Just keep digging deeper with your health and issues. This was a patient. He was a patient since 2015. Wasn't seen since 2017, and kind of took a break on some of the protocols and had some severe health things going on that he was getting better, just kept plateauing. And although he took a break, he was still watching my lectures and came across my mold lecture, and he's like, holy crap, I've been living in this house, 100-year-old house that floods all the time, and maybe there's a mold issue, and maybe this is my problem of what's been going on with the brain fog, fatigue, cognitive decline, depression, anxiety, you name it. And sure enough, I ran a mycotoxic test on him, and I wish this was in color so you could see, but the areas that are circled, here's the normal range, and you can see how much elevated this is. He was the highest I've ever had on this mold panel. This is just page 1. This is the second page. 2 more. He had 4 mycotoxin spores that were through the roof on him. This correlates to tonight's lecture with adrenal health because mold has spores in it that release mycotoxins. These mycotoxins create chronic inflammation, and that chronic inflammation increases the cortisol with your adrenal glands, which we'll address further in this lecture. And you could dive back on that lecture. That's on YouTube and on DVD. This is one of the last good pictures I have with my dad. This is a 4 generations picture. Grandpa, Dad, my 2 sons. This was about 2 years ago. My dad passed away. It'll be 2 years this upcoming December. We always do a family golf outing every single year. And it's just a fun family golf outing. This year I had some customized golf balls that were made specific for this golf outing. I thought it was pretty fun going around, shanking some balls everywhere, so I left a lot in the course. And my son's 5 and 3. 2020 hasn't stopped me from doing anything. A lot of people put their life on hold and pause, and fears held them back. I'm living life, and we're still going along. COVID going away party, November 4th, 2020. Let's hope so, because I think everyone's tired of politics right now. And if you watched that debate last night, what a complete debacle that thing was. I only caught bits and pieces of it, but the parts I saw was enough for me to turn it off and go to bed early. We're all tired of the censorship. We're all tired of the platform's political push for whatever candidate, and the misinformation that they're putting out or covering up type of thing. I've talked about this last lecture, just like I talked about COVID-19 in more depth last lecture. I'm not going to get too heavy into that this lecture. I'm just going to say a few things. 100% of this stuff is nothing but political now. This is all the left going after the right, and this is coming from someone who hates politics. United we stand, and divided we fall. The cases are going up, but the severity and the hospitalizations are going down. What's in this upcoming COVID vaccine will not protect you. The virus has already mutated, just like the flu virus mutates every single year. The flu shot has more of a placebo effect than it does a beneficial factor. If you think a mask is your best arsenal against COVID or the flu, you better think again. Most of you still downplay the proper supplementation protocols that we use with patients. I have lost 0 patients to this COVID mess. And I had 1 patient in the beginning, and this goes back to the mold stuff. He was on a vent for 3 weeks, and I thought we were going to lose him. He had a compromised lung issue from mold issues. And you've probably seen some of his recording on some of our social media stuff, because he was the guy that had the recall on his GM Saturn, that fluid built up in his HVAC system and is blowing mold on him the whole entire time, and he had respiratory issues from this. And once we found that out, he got rid of the car and everything. He was improving, but his lungs have been permanently damaged from the exposure of the mold. I don't give away too much free stuff as far as protocols go, but I'm going to tell you what I'm doing for my immune system and what I'm doing for my kids. Every day I'm going to, fall through winter, I'm doing about 6,000 IUs of the bio-DK emulsion. 6,000 IUs a day is the adult daily dose. For a convenient factor of not taking a lot of pills, I'm just doing Bio-C plus 1,000, one pill of that a day. We have many different options as far as vitamin C go, and I'm going to talk about that towards the end of the lecture. I'm doing ADP right now. Once I finish up that round, I'm going to switch to doing some astragalus, 1 to 2 a day. That's all I'm doing. How many sick days have I had in 11 years? 0. This stuff works, guys. My children's protocol, simple stuff. I take their stainless steel water canister. I take the complete cure spray, 2 shots of that, colloidal silver, liquid iodine, vitamin D, zinc, all in that spray. 1 drop of the vitamin D a few days a week. And this is powdered vitamin C that replaced the Biotics Research mixed ascorbate powder. It's about 1,200 milligrams of vitamin C, a teaspoon of that in the water. I shake it. They can't even taste anything's in it. So easy to get that down them. Adrenal gland structure and function. You got 2 adrenal glands. They sit on top of your kidneys. The inside is the medulla. The outside is the cortex. The cortex has 3 distinct layers to it that secrete different hormones. And we'll break these down. The medulla is innervated by preganglionic fibers that secrete hormones, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine in response to sympathetic stimulation, also known as neurotransmitters. These stress hormones generate the primitive stress response that helps to keep us alive in moments of trauma or danger. Effects of the catecholamines: dilation of the pupils, dilation of the bronchioles, increased metabolic rate, constriction of the blood vessels, breakdown of the fat cells, and inhibition of gastric secretion and motor activity, increased heart rate, increased rate of conversion of glycogen to glucose. Your body's going in fight mode. That's the effects of the catecholamines. The cortex has 3 distinct layers which secrete hormones of steroid origin. The adrenal cortex is responsible for the production of 3 major classes of hormones: glucocorticoids, which regulate carbohydrate metabolism; mineralocorticoids, which regulate the body's level of sodium and potassium; and androgenic hormones, which are steroid hormones. And this is another reason too, a lot of people, especially with the mineralocorticoids and regulation of sodium and potassium, that people feel like they're retaining water and water imbalance issues. Not only do the kidneys have to be looked at, but adrenal issues are very, very common, because if your adrenals are off, hyper, your salt levels get thrown off, especially if you're hypo. And the adrenal cortex has 3 distinct zones and all the different hormones that they produce down below for you visual people. The HPA axis, the top-down approach. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is a complex set of direct influences and feedback interactions among 3 components: the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. It's important to remember that the hypothalamus and pituitary gland are at the beginning of the top-down approach to addressing the endocrine imbalances. Anything hormone-wise, you must start at the top and work down. There's primary and secondary problems. And starting with the primary, which would be pituitary issues, it starts at the beginning with the brain where things are secreted. They talk to the adrenal glands. Once it does that function, it has a negative feedback to turn off the pituitary. There's conditions that we'll talk about at the end that if there's certain tumors on glands, it doesn't turn off and it just continually secretes a specific hormone. If you have pituitary gland problems, maybe lack of growth with children, migraines around periods, stomach ulcers, secondary thyroid problems, or pituitary tumors. If it's an overactive pituitary, failing memory, low blood pressure, increased sex drive, splitting headaches, and that's definitely with tumor-related issues, decreased sugar intolerance, and also increased growth hormone with a lot of people with hyperfunction as well. Pituitary hypofunction, abnormal thirst, bloating of the abdomen, weight gain around the hips or waist, sex drive reduced or lacking, tendency to ulcers, blood sugar issues, menstrual issues. Lack of menstrual function and definitely the fertility issues, something that I address a lot with women with fertility. Most of my infertility cases, I look right at the pituitary gland and start working with that first before anything else. It's very important to understand, is the problem my adrenal glands or my thyroid? Too many practitioners are just chasing the thyroid, chasing lab work, going after the thyroid, and hypothyroid symptoms will mirror image hypothyroid symptoms will mirror image hypoadrenal symptoms. So you got to understand, and I'm going to go over this twice today, these are hypothyroid-based symptoms. The weight gain, decrease in appetite, fatigue, ringing in the ears, sleepy during the day, sensitive to the cold, constipation, dry skin issues, mental sluggishness. AM energy. If your energy is worse in the morning, most likely there's a thyroid issue. If your energy is worse in the afternoon, there may be, if you burn out in the afternoon, there may be more of an adrenal issue. Hypoadrenal symptoms, weakness and fatigue, chronic fatigue, low blood pressure, rigid or weak nails, tendency for hives, allergies as well, arthritic tendencies, increased sweating, bowel disorders, circulation problems, swollen ankles. There we go back to the craving of the salt, brown spots, allergies, you name it. There's simple testing that I do with these patients, and the cortisol test that checks it 4 times throughout the day is my most accurate way of going after this. If you run this test through Genova, it's $65 with your insurance. If you don't have insurance, it's $159 cash to run this test. It's my most cash-friendly functional test I could run that doesn't break the bank for patients. Stress. Identify it, understand it, shrink it. Stress will literally kill you. COVID-19, riots, election, wildfires, hurricanes, job losses, divorces, weight gain, cancer, other health complications, funerals. I have literally heard it all in the last 7 months. I'm trying to help carry this burden for most of you guys as well, because it weighs on me hearing your stories week after week. Other sources of stress: anxiety, fear, worry, anger, depression, guilt, overwork, physical, mental strain, excessive exercise, sleep deprivation, nutritional deficiencies, mold, noise pollution, late hours of being up, surgery, trauma, inflammation, pain, you name it. These are other things that need to be addressed that are taxing your adrenal glands and your health. One of the major functions of the adrenal gland is to respond to stress. Stress can be either physical or psychological, or even both. Physical stress includes exposure of the body to injury, walking outside in the cold and wet conditions without a coat, or malnutrition. Psychological stress include perception of a physical threat, fight with a loved one, or just a bad day at school. This is important to understand. Your adrenal glands in the body and the way you respond, physical stress and or psychological, both affect your body and your adrenal glands. General adaptation syndrome stages. The body responds in different ways to short-term stress and long-term stress, following a pattern known as general adaptation syndrome. Gas. Lots of you patients are filled with gas. The function is to prepare the body for extreme physical exertion. Once the stress is relieved, the body quickly returns to normal. The problem is, some of you guys are stuck in this fight or flight mode, and you can't get out, and this is burning you out, leading into adrenal fatigue. We are now going to talk about the 4 stages of adrenal fatigue: the alarm phase, the resistance phase, and the burnout phase. Starting with the first phase. During the first phase of stress reaction, the body is capable of making significant amount of hormones that you need to mount a response. If you get lab testing done, it'll show you that you have elevated levels of epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, DHA, and insulin. During this stage, you will likely benefit from a stage of increased arousal and alertness. However, sleep patterns may begin to suffer and begin to feel intermittent tiredness. Prolonged alarm phase may be associated with weight loss, gastric ulcers, and immune suppression. Immune suppression. This will be important for Dr. Tent's next lecture. If you're stressed out, cortisol goes up, immune system goes down. I got plenty of patients right now. They could stress themselves out to the point of giving themselves a stomach ulcer. If this phase continues, so does your body's reaction to it. During the second stage, your endocrine system is still fairly equipped to produce the hormones that you need, but your levels of DHEA and other sex hormones start to drop off. This is because the response needed to produce sex hormones are being diverted to produce production of stress hormones like cortisol. And we'll talk, and I'll show some charts in this in a few more slides as well. During this stage, you will start to feel the effects of overexertion on your adrenals. This is the wired but tired feeling where you are maintaining alertness you need during the day, but then crash hard in the evening. Many adrenal sufferers begin to develop an unhealthy dependence on coffee during this stage. Stage 3, the resistance phase. During this stage, your endocrine system continues to focus on producing stress hormones at the expense of sex hormones. This means that you'll start to see substantial drops in DHEA and testosterone as hormone precursor material is diverted towards the cortisol production pathway. A key here is hormone named pregnenolone. This is the pregnenolone steal. If you're producing more cortisol, DHEA, testosterone go down. Stress is the #1 cause killer of men's sex drive. Stressed out, cortisol up, testosterone down. At this point, the individual may be able to function, hold a job, and continue a pretty normal life. However, he is experiencing lower levels of many important hormones, and it can make a significant difference in the quality of life. Typical symptoms may include regular tiredness, lack of enthusiasm, regular infections, and a lower sex drive. This phase might continue for several months or even years. Stage 4, the burnout phase. After some time, the body simply runs out of ways to manufacture stress hormones, and cortisol levels finally begin to drop. Now the levels of both the sex hormones and stress hormones are low. Levels of neurotransmitters are often low, and this is what we call the burnout phase, and it is what happens when we finally crash after a long period of coping with stress. During this final stage of adrenal fatigue, an individual can suffer from extreme tiredness, lack of sex drive, irritability, depression, anxiety, weight loss, apathy, and disinterest in the world around him. How many people do you know that are stuck in that right now? I got a case I'll talk about that is absolute burnout, and I'll show you lab work on her, and she was just in last week. The symptoms of adrenal exhaustion: anxiety, fatigue, depression, insomnia, body aches, reproductive hormone imbalance, allergy issues, chemical sensitivity, increased infections, GI dysfunction, increased body fat, salt cravings or sweet cravings, thyroid problems. She was just in last week. I was stretching because I was trying to get some extra cases to throw on my lecture, and you can see the date on this, 3/20, March of just 2020 here. Everything's low. You want to see cortisol all through here. Everything's low, 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 low. This is adrenal burnout. She is absolutely in an adrenal exhaustion phase, adrenal burnout. Between COVID, her kids, living up north, running a business, she had too much on her plate, and she is absolutely cooked, and this is what it looks like on lab work. And this is how, if cortisol's up, then you crash, everything else starts crashing. This is how all the hormones get thrown off too. So you could supplement and use certain things with women to boost estrogen, progesterone, but if you don't address the real problem and the underlying problem with the adrenal function, you won't fix these other things. Patterns of primary testing associated with adrenal dysfunction. And this goes to the salt levels that you can see on a general CBC. Potassium and sodium levels are going to be increased to decrease if it's hyper or hypo. Chlorine is going to be off. Chloride, I should say, will be off. Glucose, and a lot of people that have a hard time controlling their glucose numbers, and it continually goes up. Stress, cortisol, you're stressed out, cortisol goes up. The first thing when cortisol's up, glucose goes up, insulin goes up, and it spins this pre-diabetic cycle. So these patterns are so easy to see. It's just working with them and removing some of these stressors. And some people, you really need to make life changes and get rid of the toxic things out of your life that are creating these issues. Signs and symptoms of adrenal resistance and burnout phase. Blood pressure, if it's adrenal resistance, it's going to be high, skin be oily, sweaty, acne issues. Blood sugar, as we're talking about, is going to be increased obesity, increase your triglycerides and cholesterol factors. Burnout phase, opposite on a lot of this. So the signs and symptoms are very obvious when you understand this stuff. So someone points a gun at you, your sympathetic, your fight and flight mode gets activated. That's your sympathetic nervous system. You have all these different areas of your body, and what happens in each one, whether it's your eyes, mouth, skin, palms, lungs, heart, blood. The problem being is a lot of you patients are under the gun. You guys are stuck in the stress mode, and you're burning up vital nutrients in your body. I talked about some of this in Fixing America's Top Nutrient Deficiencies, and that's on DVD on YouTube. People who are stuck in the sympathetic dominant, go, 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 and this used to be me forever. You'll burn your alkalizing minerals like calcium, magnesium, potassium. Those are the main three minerals that put the brake on the body. And we've got great options that we use to help chill the insides out without making you feel too tired, because people are cooking through these because they're just day in and day out under the gun, and they just can't get away from the stress factors. Health conditions related to low magnesium, because that's one of the quickest ones that people will burn up. The muscle weakness, spasms, constipation, depression, hypertension, arrhythmias, low calcium levels, heart attacks, low potassium levels, personality issues, cramping, headaches. Just had a guy in here yesterday. He had low magnesium levels. He's pop, tea, coffee, alcohol, diuretics. More so in his case, he's working midnights like crazy, slamming coffee, drinking like a pot of it a day. You're going to lose your water-soluble vitamins. He cooks through so much of his magnesium that it made him completely constipated. I'm sure dehydration was a big factor with that too. Magnesium is a huge mineral for the body. It's involved with 300 metabolic reactions. Key areas include energy production, bone and ATP formation, muscle and nerve conduction, and cell signaling. And like I said, these are other causes of deficiencies, but a lot of your pop, tea, coffee, alcohol, diuretics, and standard American diet will deplete that magnesium from most people. Biology of the stress response. Your body's built to deal with stress, but the long terms of stress could be detrimental with a lot of people. Short-term stress, glucose release from the liver and the muscles. Long-term stress, your immune system gets cooked, your muscles, bone mass get diminished, insulin sensitivity, brain apathy issues. Adrenaline, someone points a gun at you, you get in that sympathetic dominant mode. Adrenaline, epinephrine is released. Epinephrine is both a hormone and a neurotransmitter. It's released by the adrenal glands, and along with norepinephrine, responsible for the fight or flight response. It affects cardiovascular functions and glucose metabolism in our bodies. Imbalance with this can cause aggression, anger, adrenal fatigue, weight gain, and stress. If you have high levels, if you have low levels, most of your kids, I would say, have low levels of this, because you look at the low levels, you got weight gain, attention issues, lots of lack of attention. Adderall pushes that epinephrine pathway, lack of concentration, the adrenal stuff, fatigue. And this is Dunwoody Labs. I looked into using them for neurotransmitter testing, but their testing was so expensive cash-wise. They're about $300. I was not impressed with it. Life Extensions magazine has a good urine neurotransmitter test that runs about 150 to 200 if you want to look at some of these neurotransmitters that I'm talking about. I got some Genova testing that could pinpoint some other things too, but if it's all strictly neurotransmitters, the Life Extensions magazine is pretty nice. A lot of people are pushing this adrenaline on a daily basis because they are living on caffeine. Their adrenals are cooked and their cortisol is completely low, that they're dependent on stimulants to keep their cortisol up, and they further diminish their adrenal function because of these stimulants. There's a lot of Adderall junkies, and there's a lot of hidden Adderall junkies, unfortunately. This is our current era of what speed was back in the day. Adderall is a stimulant, and this pushes your adrenaline cortisol pathway. Most of y'all know that because if you take it too late in the evening, you will have a hard time falling asleep. Unfortunately, the abuse with some of this, especially with some of the young girls, because it keeps them skinny because it curbs their appetite, and they could think the abuse of this is unbelievable. These stimulants push your adrenaline up. Your adrenaline goes up, cortisol goes up. You keep pushing your adrenaline up, you keep taxing your adrenal glands with the cortisol, you keep taxing your adrenal glands, you're going to push yourself into burnout very quickly. I'm an adrenaline junkie myself, I got to admit. My drug of choice is speed. This was just last Saturday at the Michigan International Speedway. I did the extreme driving experience, driving a Porsche GT3 130 miles an hour around the track. It was a blast. I love the adrenaline push from some stuff like that. I'm not going to get it through medications and illegal narcotics and Adderall and whatever. I'm going to get it naturally. Norepinephrine, also a hormone and neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. Along with epinephrine, it is responsible for the fight or flight response by releasing glucose and increasing blood flow in the body. Norepinephrine is synthesized in the same biochemical pathway as dopamine. Imbalances in norepinephrine levels can increase symptoms of aggression, anxiety, and depression. When Dr. Tent and I both talked about our neurotransmitter talk, and having people do the symptom survey forms and looking at what levels that they're low based on that testing. Dopamine was one of the biggest ones people are completely cooked on. A lot of it's because your adrenal glands are cooked. Two, my last lecture with the EMF stuff, talking about everyone on the screen time, all this EMF stuff is cooking people's brain and zapping your dopamine. High levels, low levels of norepinephrine, you will see these type of symptoms with patients. So if you're under the gun, your adrenals are being pushed day in and day out, you're living on high cortisol, and you're not properly supporting yourself with supplements, the dangers of elevated cortisol, immune impairment, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, GI problems, obesity, Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative problems, anxiety, depression, insomnia. It will catch up to you, I promise you. This is a classic test. If I run a Genova test on someone, and this is what I see a lot of when I suspect this and I'm running tests on patients, their cortisol's elevated. I need it in the green. I need it down. It's up, it's up, it's up, it's up. You guys can't fall asleep at night. You don't sleep good. You got increased weight because of this. Can't lose weight for that matter as well. Burning both ends. You're cooking. You got to look at these adrenals. It's very important if you wanted to look at your health and balance things off. The adrenals are very important. Like I said, we have these kits at the office and I could ship them all around. Lowering your cortisol, high stress adrenal, Biotics Research, ADHS. These are some of the things that I use. I use these at different doses and at different times throughout the day depending on what your testing shows me. So just don't jump on things and tackle it your own. Under guidance, you want to use the proper supplementation. It's important if you have thyroid issues and or adrenal issues, they both work with each other. And if you want to lock in your thyroid and have your thyroid properly function, you got to make sure your adrenals are balanced too. That's because high cortisol shuts off the pituitary from talking to the thyroid. High cortisol also blocks the T4 to T3 conversion. So in simple terms and bottom line, high cortisol shuts your thyroid function down. I'll be bringing this one back up at my next lecture. Signs and symptoms of adrenal dysfunction compared to thyroid dysfunction. You can see compared to cholesterol, energy level, body type, body temperature, if it's high or low based on adrenal or thyroid issues. Like I said, energy-wise, low in the morning with thyroid, adrenal tend to more or less burn out in the afternoon with their energy. Depending on what time you constantly wake up in the middle of the night, wake up 4 in the morning, you have a hard time getting back down, could be issues with that adrenal stuff as well. So that goes back to just looking, I got to reiterate this hypothyroid stuff with the symptom survey form. Look at these symptoms, and it's simple stuff, but hypothyroid symptoms mirror image of hypoadrenal symptoms. So you really got to look at both sets of these symptoms, look closely together. Now we're talking about if the stress is going up, you're being taxed, cortisol goes up, other hormones go down. This is just a little diagram that, when we're stressing under the gun, everything starts going this way for more production of cortisol. All your other hormones drop that way. Cortisol goes up, blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up. Insulin resistance starts becoming an issue. You can't lose weight. This is high cholesterol, high triglycerides, high LDL, low HDL, high A1C, high glucose. Then it leads to all your other fun hormonal problems, as you see. Emotional eating. Cortisol increases appetite and can cause someone to overeat. High cortisol levels from stress can increase food cravings for sugary or fatty foods, salty foods too. Stress is also associated with increased hunger hormones, which may also contribute to craving for unhealthy foods. This is the real COVID-19. A lot of people are carrying the COVID-19 pounds or even plus around because of stress. If you're parking fat in different areas of the body, you can see if it's insulin, cortisol related, or other hormonal based imbalances. But a lot of times the insulin resistance and cortisol is going to be in those hard to lose areas with body fat. I had to bring this up because this is something I really like. I love intermittent fasting. I do it a lot throughout the week. But what about adrenal stress? If you are an adrenal patient and you're dealing with some of these issues that I'm talking about, do not skip breakfast. Bottom line is hyper and hypoglycemia, high blood sugar and low blood sugar, will stress your adrenal glands. If I could put balance to the blood sugar, you could fix your adrenal glands a bit easier. Some other doctors may disagree with the intermittent fasting and taxing the adrenal glands, but I would say I disagree with them because it's a stress to the body because your body slows the metabolism in certain areas. Some people in the hypoglycemic symptoms, people are dip a little bit more than others, and it's a stressor to your body and your adrenal glands. Cortisol shuts your digestion down. When your body goes in fight mode and someone points a gun at you, the nerves that innervate your stomach are shut off because blood goes to your vital organs and you are set for fight mode. The problem is some of you people are stuck in fight mode and your digestion pays the price. We talked about this previously, the 3 main reasons that people have a complete dead stomach. 1, medication induced. If you're on antacids, Prilosec, Nexium, Tums, Tagamet, Protonix, those medications shut your stomach off and you, medication-wise, could create a dead stomach. If you have nutritional deficiencies, if you're lacking zinc, B vitamins, chlorine from salt, You may not have enough precursors to produce stomach acid. I see more and more people in this office that they're stressed. They're stressed out. They're stuck in fight mode and they can't digest anything because they're just they're just ready to fight. And this may be childhood stuff that something happened and you're just living life in fight mode. And I got some cool things for that EMDR treatment. I've had some great results with patients on top of supplementation to get them working with their digestive tract and other things. Gas, I said, you guys are all full of gas. This is an x-ray showing one of our patients not digesting anything and just full of gas. That's all the undigested stuff going through people. I'm taking a low back x-ray to adjust someone and you just see they just aren't digesting things. Symptoms: bloating, indigestion, gas, belching, feeling of excessive fullness, GERD, heartburn, deficiency of minerals because you're not absorbing them, dysbiosis, candida issues on the gut, IBS, constipation, diarrhea, whatever you want to call it. All these gut issues, food sensitivities, bad breath, weak nails, hair problems because you're not digesting. This was a 16-year-old. She came in for low back pain. This was just last April. Go down to number 2, weight gain issues. Seems to be going up. Gravitates towards unhealthy foods, salty foods and whatnot. Cravings for salt. And, I could tell just based on that, she had some adrenal issues going on. What did I do next? When I look at weight things, I like looking at your TSH for the thyroid. I looking at food sensitivities, and then the gut, the cortisol. Cortisol has got to be looked at. So put it all together with her. I looked at her TSH. Her thyroid was perfectly normal. She's got high amount of food sensitivities. So she's got a bit of a dead gut. Now, if she's got that amount of food sensitivities, that's going to create gut inflammation. If there's gut inflammation, cortisol goes up. If cortisol goes up, glucose, insulin, weight gain issues all follow that. I get people to drop weight by just getting rid of some of these high food sensitivities, and that's it. Which came first? Was it the food sensitivities or the cortisol? If you have high cortisol, it shuts down your digestion. You'll have higher amount of food sensitivities, and vice versa. If you have high amounts of food sensitivities, you got high cortisol, it will jack that cortisol up. But this was her cortisol test. Her cortisol for a 16-year-old was all funky, is all high through here because she's got these gut sensitivities. And once I get these gut sensitivities under control, weight comes down, cortisol comes down, she loses weight, she feels good. It's simple stuff when you put it all together like that. Some people have adrenal hyperfunction. Dizziness, headaches, hot flashes, increased blood pressure, hair growth on the face, sugar in the urine, masculine tendencies. I've got a case that I've been working hard with, and this is just the other, a few months ago here, and went to the ER twice with panic attacks. They just said, oh, no, you just need an antidepressant. You got an antidepressant deficiency. Have a nice day, go home, take some Valium, go to sleep. She's riding high. Her cortisol's high all throughout the day. She is so high. I'm working with her and her endocrinologist now because I want to rule out and make sure she didn't have an adrenal tumor going on. I'll put her on some things that'll help lower the cortisol. She's about 50% better, but it's a work at progress. But the good news is we're not dealing with any tumor that's jacking us around. But it was just an intriguing case to go after this. So many people are cooked beyond the high cortisol that their adrenals are just completely tanked, and they're more hypoadrenal issues. Low blood sugar, low blood pressure, falls asleep but doesn't stay asleep, fatigue, chronic illnesses, dizziness from sitting to standing, very common, craving for the salt, irregular cycles, infertility, allergies, underactive adrenals because you guys are beyond cooked and your adrenals are cooked. Dr. Royal Lee of Standard Process, protomorphogen therapy. This is something that we use all the time to support you patients in your, whether it's a crummy thyroid, adrenal issues, kidney problems, liver, you name it. If you use the glandular organ to help support that organ, you will help heal it faster. As they do the same thing with medicine. Thyroid function, hypothyroid issue, synthroid armor, levothyroxine, nature thyroid, whatever, all that, glandular thyroid helps support an underactive thyroid to normalize its function. We do it with supplements all the time. Well, adrenal recovery protocol. Where do we start? Well, removal of the stressors. Easier said than done. And most of you aren't going to be able to remove those stressors, including myself. Sleep, avoid coffee or caffeinated beverages. Maintain glycemic control, not too high blood sugar, not too low blood sugar. Limit your EMF exposure. Exercise. Limit the multitasking. Nutritional supplementation. The proper supplementation will help you combat a lot of this. Do not skip breakfast. No salts or no sugar. Use salt, proper salt, the Celtic salt, Himalayan salt. A balanced diet. One of the best things I've worked on this last year is just kind of focusing on my sleep and using that Oura ring, playing around with different supplements and trying to regulate my sleep, because it's been train wreck the last 5 years playing musical bedrooms at night. So it's one of my focuses, and it's been pretty cool to measure that and tackle it with different supplements. Now, vitamin C, we talked about this earlier with my protocol, but there's a key connection with your adrenal glands and vitamin C. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. What you don't use, you excrete out. But in certain areas in the body, you do store it. And the adrenal gland is among the organs with the highest concentration of vitamin C in the body. So the most vitamin C in your body that you actually do store is contained in your adrenal glands. That's why vitamin C has always stood the test of time for immune function in people who chronically are stressed out, chronically get colds and are sick all the time. Why vitamin C is one of the bang of the buck things to do. And man, do I load up on this, and I do hourly doses with this with patients. And if I feel a tickle in my throat, I could play this stuff hourly, get a good night of sleep, and most of the stuff will never ever come on with me. It's amazing. And we have so many different vitamin C options at our office. The Biotics one, the BioC Plus 1000, is a special order. I'm using it, like I said, I'm using that just one a day just for not pounding a bunch of pills. If I do the Cataplex C, I'm doing about 5 to 6 a day. C Complex 1 to 2. The Buffered C, 1 serving a day, that's fine. I play around with different ones. I love vitamin C and what it does for me. It has just worked wonders. And you could tell people who are low on vitamin C, going back to my previous lecture, health conditions related to low vitamin C: scurvy, swollen gums, periodontal destruction, loose teeth, soft tissue ulcerations, had that down twice, I guess. Increased infections, poor wound healing, easy bruising. If you're flossing your teeth and you're bleeding easy, this is stuff with vitamin C, because the vitamin C strengthens your capillaries. It's an antioxidant. It's involved with cholesterol metabolism and the production of white blood cells and antibodies, and the synthesis of collagen. If you want young skin, I'm going to give you my young skin protocol. You load up on, do a powder vitamin C, do your collagen powder. You do that on a daily basis. You do some trampling, and on top of that, you will tighten up your skin. Stress is the big cause of people, depleting their vitamin C. The oral contraceptives, aspirin, diuretics, and it says, yeah, it's one thing too, but stress is probably the biggest reason people are depleting it. I've always said B vitamins are your anti-stress vitamins. Pop, tea, coffee, alcohol, diuretics, your standard American diet, carbohydrates and sugars that deplete your B vitamins. Once you deplete your B vitamins, you tax your adrenal glands very, very hard. Most people would feel a nice boost of energy and benefit daily from getting some B vitamins, because these are water-soluble vitamins and you do not store this in your body, so you need to get this, and none of you are getting this in your diet. You're losing it more than you're getting it anyways. Lithium is huge. You know, we run hair testing on patients. Lithium, everyone tends to be depleted on this, and this is that busy brain. People just can't shut down their brain and, you know, calm down at night and fall asleep because their brain is just too busy. I've always said 85% of our soil is depleted of the minerals. The minerals aren't in the soil, it's not in the food, it's not in us. And that's one of the biggest reasons people are deficient on lithium. But two, hyperadrenal issues, people cook lithium quicker as well. So that's another key thing to understand, that not only just the soil, but your adrenal issues, people are cooking this lithium out of them pretty quickly as well. Now, there's two conditions I've got to address, and Cushing's is one of them. And you can see the symptoms along the sides with Cushing's disease, and this is hypercortisol, high cortisol, that's creating these symptoms on certain patients. And the problem is what's causing a high cortisol. It's typically a tumor in the pituitary gland or in the adrenal gland, or the overuse of cortisol medications like corticosteroids. Too much use of the steroids will push people into Cushing's. These are things that need to be addressed with an endocrinologist. This is something that we can't tackle all by ourselves, because having this tumor thing ruled out with the pituitary and your adrenal needs to be addressed. We can nutritionally support your body and try to help combat the higher cortisol, but you have to rule out those certain things with an endocrinologist. And the same thing goes for Addison's disease. Addison's disease is the opposite. Hypocortisol, low cortisol. These patients don't produce cortisol and have to be on permanent, lifelong thing of steroids. And there's primary and secondary Addison's disease. Primary is too much steroid use that causes it, infections, cancers, tumors, certain blood thinners. Secondary causes may be pituitary problems, tumors, medications, genetic, or brain injury. I had one patient, she was on steroids for this, and she wanted to work on trying to get off this, and I told her, you know, I don't think you could do it. And she wasn't compliant with her medications. She wasn't compliant with the supplements. She didn't follow up. Before you know it, she got really sick and had a delirium issue, went to the hospital. And it's something you got to take serious. We could support certain things and work along that, and especially with the Addisons, if you're on permanent steroids because you don't produce cortisol, you know, bone destruction and bone support is something that you really need to take a serious and aggressive with the supplement protocol. So, where do I start? The symptom survey form and muscle testing in the office is an easy way to start. Adrenal stress index test, that's a saliva test. A CBC lipid panel could show us a ton of stuff. If there is high cortisol, food sensitivity testing is definitely something that I want to see. And like I said, we have these test kits at the office. You could pick them up here. I could ship them to you. Very simple, the easy, fast turnaround, 7 to 10 days. They email me the results. It helps me guide you into attacking your adrenals more specifically and using the proper supplementation at the right time to help rebuild your adrenal glands from the inside out. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Chicken Little said. That's a good cartoon, by the way. Some of you guys need to turn off your TVs, and I am being serious, because the fear mongering that is being pushed by the media is unbelievable, and it's amazing to see how many people are controlled about what that TV is telling them on a nightly basis. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I'm going to give you guys some encouragement tonight. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's lecture. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, protocols everywhere. These are supplements that we use, the shipping stuff. my previous lectures. And that is it for tonight. God bless, guys.